The Lions, what do they need? I mean, the knee-jerk reaction is everything, but we talked last week that the offensive line's not in bad shape. They have some young defensive talent. Quarterback obviously is at the top of the list, but can you roll with Jared Goff for another year if you don't want to draft a quarterback first overall? And I can't envision a situation where they do take one first overall, their team trades up to number one for a quarterback. But Debo's got the rundown here, and team needs wide receiver, cornerback, interior offensive lineman, linebacker, interior defensive line. Some free agents coming up: Khalif Raymond, safety Tracy Walker, Josh Reynolds, also the wide receiver that they got from the Rams, Alex Anzalone, who's played pretty well this year, and former Alabama defensive lineman Deshaun Hand. So, Traps, I'll start with you. They have the first overall pick, and we're doing top 10 here, but they also have, as we sit here, the 24th pick from that Rams. They got from the Rams there. What are you doing, given they obviously have needs, but they don't have as many needs as, let's say, the Texans? What if you're doing? What are you doing at number one if you're Detroit? And you could even throw in the 24th pick there if you want to spice it up a little bit.
I think it needs to be edge rusher just because of the strength of this class. I mean, we talked about Aiden Hutchinson and how he's really ascended over the past couple of weeks there at the end of the college football season. You look at the strength of that position, even if they don't want him, they want to go with more upside, so to speak. Kayvon Thibodeau's there. Even George Karlaftis, I think, should be in consideration because he was a big recruit. He's been super productive at Purdue. And then if you want to throw number 24 overall, if they pick in that range, wherever the Rams ultimately are slotted, I think that makes sense for one of these quarterbacks. I don't think, for as much as Kenny Pickett has ascended, I don't think he's a number one overall pick candidate, especially when he's stacking up against Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau. But you're right, Ryan, that I think teams like the Jaguars and the Texans, they are those top three teams that are like, they could literally roll the dice and pick whatever position they ultimately need because they have so many holes on that roster. I don't think the Lions, despite having the worst record, have like a hole at every single position. So I would go edge rusher, quarterback, two premier positions, and it fits with the strength of this edge rusher class and the quarterback class.
Josh, I'll ask you, has there been any situation in your 14, soon to be 15 mock drafts where you haven't had the Lions first overall taking a defensive player? Like anything other than edge rusher?
I don't think so. I mean, I can't think back to the very beginning, but I would imagine that it's always been an edge rusher. I mean, maybe it was Derek Stingley at one point because, we don't know the future of Jeff Okudah. But like Trapp said, I mean, the strength of this class at the top seems to be edge rusher. The only other player that I hold in a similarly high regard is Kyle Hamilton, the safety from Notre Dame. And because of positional value, teams are probably not going to jump at a safety that high in the draft. So I think it's an incredibly sound reasoning to suggest that they're probably going to take an edge rusher if they stick with that pick. The alternative is you move back a little bit. I know it's December. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves talking about trade scenarios, but the other scenarios, you possibly trade back if you do find a team that maybe values one of those edge rushers a little bit more than you do.
Yeah, I want to know who that team is. I think maybe a better, an easier path to that. It'll be easier, let me put it this way. It'll be easier for the Rams to win 2 more games than it will be to find a trade back partner from number one, I feel like.
Yeah.
Unless the premium is less than it would be for a Joe Burrow or Kyler Murray, whomever. In which case, I understand that Team X is trading up for Aiden Hutchinson. It'll only cost you a second-round pick as opposed to, you're mortgaging the farm to move up. That actually could be something to keep in mind. I always come back to this. Is Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau, are they going to be game changers? And I think, Chase Young, we thought he was going to be, and, he hasn't had quite the career. But I will say this. If we said, okay, Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau, they will be Micah Parsons in year one. They might be a handful of teams willing to trade up to number one if it's only a second-round pick or whatever, if it's something less than the quarterback premium. So that's something to keep in mind. Maybe that's a sales job you have to do if you're the Lions, if you don't find a way to win a few more games and let the Jaguars or the Texans find their way to the number one spot.